He stood at the altar in a $50,000 suit, ready to marry the woman of his dreams. But when his ex-girlfriend walked in to help adjust his tie, his new bride realized something was terribly wrong. What happened next shocked everyone in that church and made him regret every lie he ever told. Before we dive into this story, you need to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications. Because what you're about to hear will leave you speechless. This isn't just another wedding drama. This is about a man who thought he could build an empire on lies, and a woman who made sure the whole world knew the truth. Trust me, you won't see these twists coming. Let's get into it. My name doesn't matter anymore. What matters is that I was a billionaire who had everything and then lost it all in front of 300 people on the day I was supposed to marry the love of my life. But that's getting ahead of the story. Let me take you back to the beginning, to when I thought I had the world figured out. I built my fortune from absolutely nothing. My parents were working class people who sacrificed everything so I could have opportunities they never had. By the time I was 32, I'd turned myself into a billionaire through real estate development and luxury hospitality. I owned boutique hotels across the country, developed exclusive residential communities, and had my name attached to some of the most prestigious properties in America. I was on magazine covers. People knew who I was. I had power, influence, and respect. Or at least, I thought I did. The money came easy after a while. The respect came too. But something was always missing. I was surrounded by people, yet I felt alone. I was successful, yet I felt empty. So when I met her at a charity gala 2 years ago, everything changed. She was radiant. Not in the way supermodels are radiant. She was radiant in a way that made you feel something real. She was an interior designer and entrepreneur, building her own brand from the ground up, just like I had. She was intelligent, ambitious, and when she smiled, you could see that she genuinely cared about the world around her. Her name was Gabriella, and she made me feel like maybe there was more to life than just accumulating wealth and power. We fell in love quickly. Too quickly, maybe. But when you're with someone who sees you for who you really are, or who you want to be, you don't question it. You just dive in. I proposed 6 months into our relationship with a 5-carat diamond ring. She said yes with tears streaming down her face. We planned the most extravagant wedding anyone had ever seen. A private estate in the Hamptons, 300 guests, the best caterers, the most renowned florist in New York. Every detail was perfect. Our engagement photos went viral on social media. Fashion magazines wanted to feature us. We were the couple everyone wanted to be. For the first time in my life, I felt like I had something real. Something that money couldn't buy and power couldn't fake. I felt like I had finally become the man I always wanted to be. But I was wrong. So terribly, completely wrong. The evening before the wedding, I was in the groom's suite at the hotel trying on my custom-made suit one last time. Everything was perfect. My tailor had crafted it flawlessly. My cufflinks were real gold. My shoes were Italian leather. Even my socks were designer. I looked like the man I'd convinced everyone I was. Gabriella was at her friend's house for the bachelorette party, surrounded by people who loved her. And I was here, surrounded by luxury and emptiness. That's when my phone rang. It was a number I hadn't seen in 8 years. It was my ex-girlfriend, Ayeshayan, Victoria. We dated from my early 20s, back when I was still building my empire. She was beautiful, smart, and she loved me for who I was before the money came. I ended it with her because I wanted more. More success, more power, more status. I wanted someone who matched my ambition, or at least someone from my new world. Looking back, it was one of the cruelest decisions I ever made. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Her voice was exactly as I remembered it. Warm, but with an edge I'd never quite understood. She said she was in the city, and she really needed to see me before I got married. She said it was important. I should have said no. Every instinct in my body told me to say no. But I said yes. I told her to meet me at a coffee shop near the hotel in 30 minutes. I didn't tell Gabriella. That should have been my first sign that something was deeply wrong. Victoria looked exactly the same. That's what struck me most when I saw her sitting at the corner table, a cappuccino untouched in front of her. 8 years had passed. but she was still the same beautiful, confident woman I'd known. She smiled when I approached, and it was genuine. But there was something in her eyes, something knowing, something that made my stomach tighten. We talked about the basics at first. How was she? She was great. She'd gotten married, then divorced. She was running a successful business. She was happy. She asked about me, and I told her about Gabriella, about the wedding, about how I'd finally found someone who made me believe in something beyond myself. Victoria listened to all of it with this calm expression on her face. Then she said something that changed everything. "That's wonderful," she said. "I've heard amazing things about Gabriella. She sounds like a truly special woman." She paused, and in that pause, I felt everything shift. "But there are things she doesn't know about you, things that could change everything." My heart dropped. I asked her what she meant. She said she had evidence, documents, videos, things that would prove I hadn't been honest about my past. She wouldn't show me right then. Instead, she told me to check my phone the next morning before the ceremony. She said she wasn't trying to ruin my life. She was trying to save it. Then she left. I sat there for an hour, staring at my cold coffee, my mind racing. What could she possibly have? What lies was she talking about? I told myself it was nothing. It had to be nothing. Victoria was just trying to get into my head before the biggest day of my life. That was all this was. But I knew that wasn't true. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, my phone on the nightstand, waiting for morning, waiting for the truth to come crashing down. The sun came up at 6 in the morning. I was already awake. I picked up my phone with shaking hands, and there it was. An email from Victoria with attachments, documents, screenshots, videos. As I scrolled through them, I felt the world collapse around me. There were contracts, engagement announcements from 7 years ago, photos from charity events with a woman named Isabella, a woman from an extremely wealthy family. We'd been engaged. I'd proposed to her with an even bigger diamond than the one I'd given Gabriella. The engagement had ended publicly when Isabella's family business faced a scandal, and I distanced myself. But I'd never told Gabriella about Isabella. I'd let her believe that she was the first serious relationship I'd had as a successful man. I'd let her believe that what we had was unique. There was more. Text messages between me and Isabella from just 6 months before I met Gabriella. Flirty messages, suggestive messages, evidence that I hadn't completely cut ties with my ex-fiancé, even as I was beginning to build something new with Gabriella. And there were screenshots of conversations with other women during those early months with Gabriella. Nothing explicitly sexual, but enough to prove that I was keeping my options open, that I wasn't fully committed, that I was hedging my bets. Then there was the video. It was from an exclusive club, dated 5 months into my relationship with Gabriella. It showed me with Isabella, my hand on her back, leaning in close, laughing at something she said. We looked intimate. We looked like we could have been together. I felt sick. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold my phone. But as I sat there, paralyzed by panic and shame, a new message came through. It was from an unknown number. "Your bride knows everything. Good luck explaining yourself." I read that sentence 10 times, then 20 times. It didn't make sense. How could Gabriella know? I'd been careful. I'd covered my tracks. I'd made sure she never saw anything that would make her question my loyalty, unless she hadn't found out by accident, unless someone had told her. I had 4 hours until the ceremony. 4 hours to somehow explain away years of deception. 4 hours to convince Gabriella that what she'd learned didn't matter, that what we had was real, that I'd changed. 4 hours to save the life I'd built. I didn't sleep, I didn't shower. I put on my custom suit with numb fingers and tried not to fall apart. The venue was breathtaking. The estate looked like something from a fairy tale. White flowers covered every surface. Hundreds of candles flickered in the afternoon light. The guests were dressed in their finest, sitting in white chairs, waiting for the magic to happen. My family was there. My business partners were there. Gabriella's family was there. Proud and excited. I took my position at the altar, my best man beside me. I looked out at the crowd and felt nothing but dread. The music started, the wedding march filled the air, and then she appeared. Gabriella was beautiful beyond words. Her dress was custom designed, a stunning white gown that hugged her curves perfectly. Her hair was styled in an elegant updo with diamonds woven through it. She carried a bouquet of white roses and orchids. Every eye in the room was on her, and she was radiant, absolutely radiant. But when our eyes met, I saw something in her gaze that made my blood run cold. She wasn't smiling. There was no joy in her expression. There was something else, something knowing, something angry. She walked down the aisle slowly, deliberately. With each step, I felt my heart hammering harder against my ribs. She climbed the altar steps and stood in front of me, and for a moment we just looked at each other. The officiant began to speak, welcoming everyone and talking about love and commitment and forever. Then Gabriella raised her hand. The officiant stopped speaking. "Before we continue," she said, her voice steady and clear, carrying through the entire venue, "I need to expose some truths." The air left the room. I heard gasps from the guests. I felt the weight of 300 pairs of eyes on me. Gabriella pulled out a folder from somewhere. I never even knew she had it. She opened it calmly, methodically, and began to speak. "This man standing next to me has lied to me repeatedly," she said. "He told me that I was the first serious relationship he'd had as a successful man. That's a lie. 7 years ago, he was engaged to a woman named Isabella. He proposed to her just like he proposed to me. That engagement ended, but not because he fell out of love. It ended because her family's business faced a scandal, and he abandoned her. He told me he'd never been engaged before me." She pulled out the first set of documents. People in the front row leaned forward, craning their necks to see. "He told me he hadn't spoken to any of his exes in years," she continued. "That's also a lie. Just 6 months before he met me, he was still in contact with Isabella. Intimate contact. I have the messages right here." She held up the screenshots. Some of the guests gasped audibly. "He told me that he was a faithful man, that he'd changed from his younger years, that he was ready to settle down with someone he genuinely loved," she said, her voice never wavering. "And then I found evidence of infidelity. Not physical infidelity, but emotional infidelity. Kept options, kept connections, kept doors open while he was telling me that he was all in with me. I tried to speak. I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. What could I say? What defense did I have? But here's the thing," Gabriella continued. "I didn't find out about this yesterday. I didn't find out this morning. I found out 3 weeks ago, and I want to tell you how." She turned to face the crowd. "His ex-girlfriend, Victoria, reached out to me. She knew about his pattern of behavior because she'd been a victim of it too. 8 years ago, he ended their relationship because he wanted someone with more status, more money, more prestige. Victoria didn't contact me out of spite or jealousy. She contacted me because she couldn't bear the thought of another woman being deceived the way she had been." A woman in the back stood up. It was Victoria. She was watching calmly, like she was witnessing a moment she'd orchestrated perfectly. "Victoria and I became friends," Gabriella said. "And together, with the help of a lawyer, we documented everything. Every lie, every infidelity, every betrayal. We recorded conversations where he admitted to keeping his options open. We gathered evidence of asset transfers he's been making to protect his wealth in case of divorce. We have everything." The reality of what she was saying crashed over me like a wave. She wasn't just calling me out, she was destroying me. "So right now, in front of all of you, I'm calling off this wedding," she said, "and I'm telling him that he's going to regret every single lie he told me. I have a lawsuit prepared. I have evidence of emotional abuse, infidelity, and financial deception. And I'm going to make sure that this man learns what it means to be held accountable for his actions." She looked at me directly, and I saw tears in her eyes. Not tears of sadness, but tears of righteous anger. "You made a choice a long time ago to prioritize your ambition over your integrity," she said. "You chose to build your empire on deception, and you thought you could keep doing that forever. But I'm here to tell you that karma is real, and your bill just came due." She turned and walked away from the altar, and as she walked back down the aisle, half the room stood and applauded. I stood there frozen as my world disintegrated in real time. My mother was crying. My business partners were whispering to each other, already calculating how this would affect their partnerships with me. My friends looked shocked and disappointed. The woman I tried to deceive had just become the hero of the story, and I was the villain. But the worst part came when I saw Victoria nod at Gabriella as she passed by. Not a nod of victory or smugness, a nod of mutual respect, a nod that said, "You did it. You stood up for yourself and for every other woman he's deceived." In that moment, I understood something fundamental about karma. It's not about punishment. It's about truth finally surfacing. And the truth, once it's out, can't be controlled or manipulated or bought off. The next 6 months were an absolute nightmare. Gabriella's lawsuit was airtight. My lawyers told me I didn't have a case. The evidence was overwhelming. The recordings were legally obtained. The financial deception was documented. I lost millions in the settlement. But the money wasn't the worst part. The worst part was the reputation damage. Within days, the story leaked to the media. It became a cautionary tale. Business partners dropped me. Investors pulled out. Hotels with my name on them began the process of removing it. I went from being a celebrated billionaire to being a cautionary tale about what happens when ambition overrides integrity. And then Isabella came forward. She gave an interview to a major magazine detailing how I'd ended our engagement when her family faced financial difficulties, how I'd made her feel worthless and replaceable, how she'd spent years recovering from the trauma of being discarded so publicly. The article went viral. Suddenly, everyone could see the pattern. This wasn't one mistake. This was a lifetime of treating people as expendable. My own family distanced themselves from me. My father, who'd worked his entire life to instill values in me, looked at me with a disappointment that was far worse than anger. My mother stopped taking my calls. I was alone. But Gabriella thrived. She used the settlement money to expand her interior design business into a full luxury brand. Within a year, she had showrooms in New York, Los Angeles, and Miami. She appeared on design shows. She was featured in major publications. She became more successful than she ever would have been if she'd married me. Victoria started a nonprofit organization dedicated to helping women who've been emotionally manipulated and deceived by wealthy men. She became an advocate, a speaker, a voice for people like herself and Gabriella. And me? I'm still here, still breathing, still existing. But the man I was, the billionaire, the power player, the man who thought he could control everything, he's gone. And honestly, I don't know if he was ever real. What I learned from all of this is that you can build an empire on lies, but you can't build a life that way. You can fool people, manipulate them, deceive them, but eventually the truth has a way of surfacing. And when it does, it destroys everything you built on falsehoods. I thought my success meant I was winning at life. I thought my wealth meant I was powerful. But I was wrong. Real power comes from integrity. Real success is building something that lasts because it's built on truth. Real wealth is having people in your life who know you, truly know you, and still choose to stand by you. I had none of those things. And now I never will. This is the story of how karma caught up with me. Not in some mystical, supernatural way, just through the simple power of truth. A woman who decided she wouldn't be deceived. An ex-girlfriend who refused to let another person suffer the way she had. And a system of accountability that finally worked the way it's supposed to work. The billionaire groom didn't get his bride, but he got what he deserved, justice served cold, in front of everyone who mattered. If this story taught you anything, smash that like button right now. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. Someone who's been lied to, someone who's been deceived, someone who needs to know that the truth always comes out. Subscribe to this channel for more stories that will make you question everything you think you know about power, money, and what it really means to have it all. Because having it all means nothing if you don't have your integrity. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.